الصلاة والسلام عليك يا رسول الله.
فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى.
الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى خصوصا على أفضلهم وخاتم النبيين محمد الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. Our dear Hassan Minhaj, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has declared in the Quran a verse with which you are all familiar with. In Surah An-Nahl, which is Surah number, what number? Number 16. Surah An-Nahl, Surah number 16. The surah entitled The Bee. That he sent down this Quran that it might explain all things. تبيانا لكل شيء. Well then, it should explain some of these strange things that I'm about to narrate to you. Islam recognizes a holy land. In Arabic, Al-Ardul Muqaddasa. What is it in Bahasa? Oh no, you know Bahasa. Huh? Tanah Suci. Yes. The Holy Land. Judaism recognizes Holy Land. Christianity recognizes Holy Land. And for all three, the Holy Land is where we have Palestine. Hinduism have a Holy Land. The Holy Land is India, Bharat. And Buddhism also has a concept of a holy place where Gautama Buddha achieved Nirvana. In our Holy Land, we notice that after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given the land to the Israelite people, today they call Jews, He says so in the Quran, in Surah Al-Ma'idah, that He gave the land to the Jews. Yeah, it's there in the Quran. But strangely, the New York Times does not seem to be interested in telling the world that the Quran declares that the Holy Land was given to the Jews. Yeah? I wonder why. And then the state of Israel was established in the Holy Land. And that state of Israel under the Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam became the ruling state in the world. Yeah. Jerusalem became the political and spiritual capital of the world. And then Allah expelled them from the Holy Land. And the holy state of Israel was destroyed. And the masjid, built by Sulaiman alayhi salam, was destroyed. And for 2,000 years, the Jews lived in exile. Is this true, what I'm saying? It is? But I want you to listen carefully to what I have to say, because we have a newspaper here today. And we are accustomed of being misrepresented. It is customary now, being misrepresented, not the reporters, the big men out there. And one of these days we're going to be fed up of misrepresentation. And we'll show the truth in their faces and go in front of the newspaper offices with placards. Is this what the man said? Why do you tell lies? Huh? This is not to intimidate our newspaper president. But we just gave a lecture 2 days ago, UBD, the Cove. And you could see what happened when they reported on that lecture. 2,000 years they remained in exile. And after 2,000 years, the Jews have returned to the Holy Land, returned to Jerusalem to reclaim it as their own. After 2,000 years, a state of Israel has been restored in the Holy Land. And that state of Israel, born as a baby about 50 years ago, 60, 70 years ago, steadily growing rapidly in power until today, a former Prime Minister of Israel would say, "We control America." And the United States, of course, is the ruling state in the world. So we ask the question, can all of these be happening by accident? Or is there an explanation in the Quran? Okay? It is when we turn to the Quran to find the explanation that we are brought to the subject of Akhirul Zaman, or the last age. Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam was sitting with his companions when he came upon his companions who were sitting talking amongst themselves, and he asked, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "We're talking about the signs of the last day." And then he said, and this is in Sahih Bukhari, it is in Sahih Muslim, the last day would not come until, and then he mentioned 10 signs. Who can tell me all 10? Come on. I have a small gathering here today, so I can take my time. I can pause, I can ask questions. I can't do that in a big lecture. Who want to help me? All 10. Yes, go ahead. Number 1,
Never give birth to his own master.
Imam al-Mahdi. No, not in the 10. He gave the sign, yes, but not in the 10. Yes, go ahead.
The presence of Dajjal.
Dajjal, number 1. Go ahead, number 2. The coming, the return of Nabi Isa alayhi salam. Correct. Number 3.
The sinking of the earth. The sinking of the earth.
3. You have to say 3.
Trees.
Sinking of the earth. The earth opens and swallows what it swallows. Earthquakes. 1 in Bandar Seri Begawan. Where are they?
On
One.
the east,
1 in the east.
west,
1 in the west.
and one in the middle east.
1 in.
In the middle east.
You only get 5 marks for that. 1 in the east, 1 in the west, and 1 in. Come on, Minhaj, the third one. I think it's sophisticated guesswork. 1 in the east, 1 in the west, and 1 in Arabia. Okay, so we had Dajjal, we had the return of Nabi Isa alayhi salam, we had the 3 sinkings of the earth. That's 5. So 5 more? Huh? The sun will rise from the west. That's 6. 4 more. No, don't check it now. No. Put your machines away. Yeah? GOG and MAGOG. 7. 3 more. 3 more.
Monster.
Huh?
Monster came out.
What?
Monster came out from
Monster came out
somewhere.
from somewhere. Dabbatul Ard. Beast of the earth. 2 more.
The ayah in the Quran disappears.
The ayah of the Quran
Disappears.
disappeared. No.
Smoke coming from his.
Allah is protecting the Quran. Allah is protecting the Quran. Divinely protected. 2 more. We had Dajjal. We had the return of Nabi Isa alayhi salam. We had the 3 Usuf. 1 in the east, 1 in the west, 1 in Arabia. That's 5. We had GOG and MAGOG. That's 6. We had the sun rising from the west. That's 7. And we had Dabbatul Ard. That's 8. We need 2 more. Yeah. 2 more.
The Arabian desert become Greenland.
Not in the 10. Smoke. Dukhan. Smoke. 1 more. Fire. From? A fire will come out of Barbados. A fire will come out of Babylon. A fire will come out of Yemen is correct. Yemen. And drive people to their place of assembly for judgment. There you are. The 10. Among these 10 are GOG and MAGOG. Okay? Alright. Now, we go to the Quran to find out, does the Quran explain the return of the Jews to Jerusalem 2,000 years after they were expelled, and the restoration of his state of Israel in the Holy Land 2,000 years after it was destroyed? Okay? There is a certain methodology for studying the Quran that I explained in my lecture at the court. All those who were present for that lecture, put your hands up. 2 days ago. 2 days ago. Oh, not everybody. Okay. That methodology, and was it the Brunei Times that gave the nice report? Yeah, the Brunei Times. Yes. The reporter from Brunei Times actually remained for the whole lecture, therefore he could give a report on the lecture. The methodology for the study of the Quran is given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the beginning of the Quran. Now listen carefully because you've got to teach the subject. At the beginning of the Quran, Allah speaks and He says that He gave an order to the angels, the malaika, to bow down, make prostration, sijda, before Adam alayhi salam. فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسِ. And elsewhere in the Quran, Jamia, they all made sijda except Iblis. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not deficient in the use of language. No. So this statement is deliberately constructed this way for a purpose. فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسِ. Allah wants to teach a lesson. Every university student better learn that lesson. The lesson is this. If you study this verse by itself, alone, Americans say stand alone, then you have to come to the conclusion, logical conclusion, that since the order was given to the angels and they all obeyed except one, Iblis, implication is Iblis was an angel. Iblis was an angel. You can't get away from that. That is, if you use this wrong methodology of studying a verse of the Quran or a hadith by itself, alone, stand alone, then you can come to a conclusion which can be wrong. Is Iblis an angel? You would not know that unless you go to the rest of the Quran. If you stay with this verse alone, Iblis has to be an angel. Oh yes. But if you take the Quran as a whole, lazy people don't want to do that. No, you have fast food now. Fast food. You have all kinds of fastings now. So they want fast knowledge too. They don't want to do their homework. Go to the whole Quran. And when you study the whole Quran that is relevant to this topic, then you'll get the answer. And when we go to the rest of the Quran, we very quickly find out, oh no, Iblis could not have been an angel. Why? Because elsewhere in the Quran Allah says, وَيَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ, and the angels obey Allah. Whatever they are commanded, they obey. angels cannot disobey. No. So if this fella disobeyed, he couldn't be an angel. See? But you would not have known that unless you had studied the Quran as a whole. And then when we went to Surah Al-Kahf of the Quran, Allah now says it plainly and clearly, وَكَانَ مِنَ الْجِنِّ. Iblis was a jinn. And so from this lesson, taught at the very beginning of the Quran, you know, you got homework to do. When you want to study any verse of the Quran, you got homework to do. Don't be lazy. You could make mistakes, and then you'll be very embarrassed. What you have to do is to get all the verses of the Quran which pertain to that particular subject. Let's call it the data. And when you've got all the data from the Quran on that subject, then you have to try to bring them together as a harmonious whole. It is as though you have pearls. What's the bahasa for pearl? Mutiara? Mutiara, oh yes, beautiful word. Mutiara. And you have to put these mutiara to make a necklace. What is necklace? Ratnai. Rantai. You have the mutiara and you got to make it into a rantai. Good? So all the verses of the Quran are the mutiara. And your job, and that's not easy, eh? Oh no. Your job is to take all of these mutiara and make it into a rantai, an organic whole, harmonious whole. In the case of mutiara, you need a string, okay? And you pass it through the string. In the case of the Quran, my teacher said, Rahimahullah Maulana Dr. Muhammad Fadl Rahman Ansari, in his book, who knows the book? I just introduced the book 2 days ago. The Quranic Foundations and Structure of Muslim Society, 2 volumes. And I said, volume 2, very nice. Very nice. For volume 1, I said you must buy a bottle of Tylenol, headache tablets. Volume 1, not easy. That book, we don't have chalk for that book, so it cannot go on sale yet. But if you order it from KL, and we can send it to you by mail, I'm sure you'll get it in the mail. Alright, so what you can do is take my email address, send me an email, and we can send it to you by mail, inshallah. Excuse me. My teacher in this book says that the rantai, the string that you need to make the rantai, he calls that the system of meaning of the subject. And when you have penetrated the system of meaning of the subject, then you can take the mutiara and make the rantai. When you've done that, only then, not before, only then will you open the books of hadith. Not before. Quran first, then hadith. And when you open the books of hadith, all those ahadith, the mutiara in the hadith, which can go into the rantai, get absorbed. So your rantai will become bigger now because it's all harmonious, they can fit into the rantai. And when you locate a hadith which cannot get into the rantai, that is the hadith you're going to put aside. Put this aside. You will not deal with that hadith. That hadith, for example, could be fabricated. It could be a hadith which is in conflict with the Quran. But you don't handle that. You leave that to the scholars. Let them handle that. In your case, you will simply put it aside quietly. If it cannot fit into the rantai, that's it. So this is the methodology for the study of the Quran. Not difficult, is it? To understand the methodology. It is. Some people are too lazy to do their homework. Yeah. So now we go to the Quran to try to find an explanation that will explain these people being expelled from Jerusalem and living for 2,000 years in exile. And then after 2,000 years, they are brought back to reclaim Jerusalem as the Holy Land, as their own. What is the explanation in the Quran? In Surah Al-Anbiya, we don't have the time to go to all the mutiara. No, we don't have that time. In Surah Al-Anbiya, Surah number 21, entitled The Prophets, verses 94 and 95, I believe, or maybe 95 or 96. Allah speaks and He says, فَأَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ وَحَرَامٌ عَلَى قَرْيَةٍ أَهْلَكْنَاهَا أَنَّهُمْ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ. He is speaking about a qarya or a town. It is a town which He destroyed. أَهْلَكْنَاهُ. And having destroyed that town, the people of the town were expelled. And then Allah placed a ban on them that they could never return to that town to reclaim it as their own. وَحَرَامٌ عَلَى قَرْيَةٍ. Which town is it? They can never return to reclaim it as their own. Which town is it? The next verse goes on to say, Hatta. They will return to reclaim it as their own. When? إِذَا فُتِحَتْ يَأْجُوجُ وَمَأْجُوجُ. When GOG and MAGOG are released. Futihat, open, released. And now later on in the sub-lecture, we'll find where GOG and MAGOG were placed behind a barrier and they could not get out. They were blocked. So, when GOG and MAGOG are released from behind the barrier, إِذَا فُتِحَتْ يَأْجُوجُ وَمَأْجُوجُ وَهُمْ مِنْ كُلِّ حَدَبٍ يَنْسِلُونَ. Two things. Number one, when they are released from behind the barrier. And number two, when they spread out in all directions, or they descend from every height. Then you will find these people being brought back to the town to reclaim it as their own. So when you see these people brought back to the town to reclaim it as their own, you know you're living in Akhirul Zaman. And you know that those who have brought them back to the town are Ya'juj and Ma'juj, GOG and MAGOG. Who are GOG and MAGOG? Are they some strange creatures living in the interior of the earth? Huh? Or are they some strange human beings with 24 ears, 24 ears and 3 noses? What are they, GOG and MAGOG? Huh? You get a very interesting answer when you go to some of the books and read the books. In fact, you might start to laugh. The Prophet said, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, and now we turn to the hadith just to clarify, not to add anything, just to clarify. Hadith is in Sahih Muslim. He said that Ya'juj or GOG is an ummah of Banu Adam, so human beings. And Ma'juj is an ummah of Banu Adam, so human beings. That disposes of all these strange creatures living in the interior of the earth. Question: which town is it that Allah is speaking of in Surah Al-Anbiya? Now, it's very easy for everybody to understand and recognize which town it is. But it wasn't easy 1,000 years ago, 1400 years ago, when the books of Tafsir were written. So you will find the Mufassirun making a guess. Maybe it is this town, maybe it is that town, maybe it is that town, and saying Allah knows best. You couldn't expect them at that time to understand and grasp what we can so easily grasp now. Which town is it? But let us return to our methodology. In order to identify the town, we have to go to the whole Quran to see where Allah speaks about bringing a people back. Bringing a people back to where they were. There is one such verse, and it is at the end of Surah Al-Isra. Surah number 17. You got homework to do, huh? Surah number 17. Surah Al-Isra. If you knew this Quran the way you know these machines that you are, tick-tack, tick-tack-toe, be good for you, eh? At the end of Surah Al-Isra, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about Banu Israel all through the surah. In fact, although it is not well known, this surah also has another name. Most people know it as Surah Al-Isra. Very few people know that it is also called Surah Bani Israel. Oh, panas? Oh, water? Okay, fine. Panas. At the end of the surah, Allah speaks about آخر الزمان. And he says, فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ الْآخِرَةِ جِئْنَا بِكُمْ لَطِيفًا. That when the countdown, the last countdown is coming to an end, we're going to bring you back. We're going to bring you back. And when you are brought back, you will be like a mingled crowd. You're not all the same anymore. For example, some of you will have a Yemeni stomach for Yemeni food, and others will have an Iranian stomach for Iranian food. And you'll be speaking Iranian language, you're speaking Yemeni Arabic. And others will have a Moroccan stomach. And others will have a Russian stomach and speaking Yiddish. And some will have a Chinese stomach. جِئْنَا بِكُمْ لَفِيفًا. So Allah does speak in the Quran about bringing a people back, and the context of the surah makes it clear that He's speaking about the Israelite people. So here is the Quran clearly pointing to Banu Israel as the people who will be brought back. Brought back meaning brought back to their town. Now then, when we leave the Quran and we go to the Hadith now, from Mutiyara in the Hadith, we're looking now, and there are many Hadiths on GOG and MAGOG, and we want to find whether there's any Hadith on GOG and MAGOG which links them to a town. So we can identify the town. When we go through all the Hadiths on GOG and MAGOG, we find that there is only one town mentioned, only one, that is linked to GOG and MAGOG, and it is Jerusalem. You won't find the word Jerusalem in the Quran. You won't find the word Jerusalem in the Hadith, because we don't use the word Jerusalem. We use the word Baitul Maqdis. That's our name, Baitul Maqdis, not Jerusalem. And now we have a new name, we call it Al-Quds. So other people call it Jerusalem, we call it Baitul Maqdis. And in the Hadith, GOG and MAGOG are going to Baitul Maqdis. So on the basis of this verse of the Quran and this Hadith, we come to the conclusion that when Allah spoke in the Quran, in Surah Al-Anbiya, about a town which was destroyed, the people were expelled, a ban was placed on them that they could never return to reclaim that town as their own, until GOG and MAGOG are released and is spread out in all directions. Allah was speaking about Jerusalem. And so now at least we have an explanation, because we began by asking the question. Here is a very important event which has occurred. That the Jews have come back to the Holy Land, to Jerusalem, to reclaim it as their own 2,000 years after they were expelled. And we want an explanation. Now we have an explanation. That GOG and MAGOG have brought them back. If you say we are wrong, you must tell us what is right. That's only fair, isn't it? Don't open your mouth, as the Salafis are very fond of doing. Sometimes they put their foot in their mouth. I'm so sad to speak like this, because that's exactly what they've been doing. They just cannot leave me alone. No. As though I'm a Red Bull. Anytime Imran Hosein opens his mouth, Sarafis have to jump. I don't know what's wrong with that. If I criticize, I do so in an academic way, scholarly way, with no disrespect intended, not at all. But when they respond with all the cannons firing. Allah is speaking about Jerusalem and saying that GOG and MAGOG have brought the Jews back to the Holy Land. That's our explanation. If you say we are wrong, you must tell us what is right. You must go to the Quran and you must locate in the Quran the explanation and then present it, which explains this phenomenon of the Jews being brought back to the Holy Land to reclaim it as their own 2,000 years after they were expelled. To this day they have not done that. No. Nobody has done that. No one. To locate another explanation from the Quran. But all that they can do is to beat the drums and say, Imran Hosein is wrong, Imran Hosein is wrong, Imran Hosein is wrong. Sounds foolish now. Why? Because more and more people who have intelligence are recognizing that this is correct. And so while you keep on beating your drums, you're looking more and more foolish. Yes. If GOG and MAGOG have brought them back to the Holy Land to reclaim it as their own, and if GOG and MAGOG are human beings, can we identify them? Who are those who have brought the Jews back to the Holy Land to reclaim it as their own? Can we identify them? Well, at the end of the second verse in Surah Al-Anbiya, we are told, وَهُمْ مِنْ كُلِّ حَدَدٍ يَنْسِلُونَ, that they spread out in all directions, or they descend from every height. In Sahih Muslim, we are told something more. It is a Hadith al-Qudsi. Do we have any copies of GOG and MAGOG? No, we don't have any copies. Okay. Sorry about that. We have, I just brought out a second edition of the book, about 3-4 weeks ago. But that is in KL. So again, you're going to have to order it from KL and we can ship it to you now. In Sahih Muslim, Hadith al-Qudsi, Allah says about GOG and MAGOG, I have created creatures of mine so powerful that none but I can fight them and destroy them. Only I can do it, nobody else can do it. Meaning that GOG and MAGOG have an indestructible power. So when they are released into the world from behind the barrier that I spoke about earlier, something new is going to happen in history. Something that never happened before in history. A new force is going to emerge in history. A people who are going to come, and with their power they will take control of the world. They will spread out in all directions. And by spreading out in all directions, they'll impose their rule over the whole world. These are the people who are going to bring GOG and MAGOG back. Bring the Jews back to the Holy Land to reclaim it as their own. Who are these people? we leave that question, that very fascinating question. Who are these people? To now go from Surah Al-Anbiya to Surah Al-Kahf. Surah number 18. 18. You do answer correctly, no Tetarik at the end. Surah number 18. And in Surah number 18, Surah Al-Kahf, Allah speaks about Dhul Qarnayn. وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ. And they question thee about Dhul Qarnayn. قُلْ سَأَتْلُ عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْهُ ذِكْرًا. I'm going to tell you something of his story. إِنَّا مَكَّنَّا لَهُ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا. I gave to him, or we gave to him, the power to pursue any goal he chose to pursue. So, we're talking about a superpower, eh? This is the superpower in the world, because he has the power to pursue whatever goal he chose to pursue. فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. So he decided to pursue a particular goal. And he traveled to the west. And then he traveled for a second time to the east. And then he traveled a third time. And when he traveled the third time, he came across a people whose language could not be understood. When they were able to communicate with each other, they then said to him, because he's got the power, O Dhul Qarnayn, we got a problem. GOG and MAGOG are very wicked people, and they are destructive. They corrupt and destroy, and we need help, and we're prepared to pay you. Can you build a barrier to block them? And he built the barrier, and they were blocked. I wonder in which direction was the third journey. The first was to the west, the second was to the east, and the third was in which direction? I wonder where this barrier was. Behind the barrier are GOG and MAGOG. Is it in Borneo? Is it? Where is this barrier? Now comes the fascinating part. Another hadith tells us that when Allah brings down the barrier in Akhirul Zaman and GOG and MAGOG are released, the first of them will pass by the Sea of Galilee on their way to Jerusalem. And they start to drink the water. And by the time the last of them pass the Sea of Galilee on their way to Jerusalem, they say there used to be water here. We come back to the Sea of Galilee in a moment. If you are traveling to Jerusalem and you pass the Sea of Galilee on your way to Jerusalem, the implication is you're traveling coming from the north. Because the Sea of Galilee is north of Jerusalem. Okay? So now, we're getting somewhere. We're looking for a barrier somewhere north of Jerusalem, past the Sea of Galilee. Where is it? We have some more clues. When Zulkarnain traveled to the west, the first journey, he traveled until he came to a place where the sun was setting in a body of water, meaning the sun was not going down in the water, you dum-dum. I mean, the sun was setting beyond that water. And the water is described as hamia, dark, murky water. So now, let's check out. Is there any body of water north of the Holy Land? North of the Holy Land, is there any body of water which is dark and murky and which is to the west? To the west of the Holy Land. No, we don't want that now. Right, there we are. To the west of the Holy Land. The Holy Land here. Sea of Galilee is somewhere here. It's clear there are only two bodies of water. Only two. One is the Mediterranean Sea and the other is the Black Sea. Only two. So now we examine the Mediterranean Sea. We send Minhaj on a ship and examine the water. And Minhaj come back to say, water is clear. You can see a few meters down in the Mediterranean Sea. So we say, okay Minhaj, you're going to make another trip now. And we send him to the Black Sea. Where is it here? And when Minhaj got on board the boat, the Black Sea, you could hardly see 1 meter down. It is hamia. It is dark. It is murky, and that's why it is called the Black Sea. You don't need a PhD. You don't need a PhD to recognize that when Zulkarnain traveled to the west and reached to the body of water, it was the Black Sea. Okay? And then when he traveled to the east, if the Black Sea is on the left, to the west, and if you travel to the right, do we have a picture? Yes, you reach the Caspian Sea on the right side, on the east. So Zulkarnain is between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. If he is traveling between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, one to the west and one to the east, and then he travels to a third direction, when he traveled to the third direction, he came upon a pass between two mountain ranges. So it has to be the Caucasus Mountains. There they are, the Caucasus Mountains. Between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, are the Caucasus Mountains. Do we have any other map? That's all the only one we have. Okay. So when you go home, go to Google Earth and type in Black Sea, type in Caspian Sea, type in Caucasus Mountains, and you'll see the actual photograph. Okay? When he traveled in the third direction, therefore, he had to be traveling north. North. Because when he traveled in the third direction, he came across a pass between two mountain ranges. And those two mountain ranges will have to be the Caucasus Mountains. And there he came across a people whose language could not be understood, indicating that they spoke a language which had no connection with the regional languages. It was an isolated language, completely different from all the languages in that region. Can you recognize that language today? Yes. The Georgian language, which is spoken there in Georgia. Georgia is south of the Caucasus Mountains. That Georgian language is completely different from all the other languages in that region. So the evidence is mounting continuously that we are on the right path. Okay? Good. So he built the barrier. What did he use to build the barrier? Was it recycled paper? Or was it bamboo? No. He said, Atini zubar al-hadid, bring me blocks of iron. So that has to be an area where there are iron ore deposits. That is precisely what you find in that area. Iron ore, O-R-E, the raw iron, it abounds in that region. He said, blow with your bellows and make a smelter. Okay. And then when he had used the iron blocks and blocked the pass between the two mountain ranges, he then poured molten lead on the iron blocks. And the engineers, we have any engineer here? No engineer? The engineer tells us it prevents rust. The molten copper prevents the iron from rusting. Okay. So now we have the location. The GOG and MAGOG are human beings, and they were located north of the Caucasus Mountains. And that pass, in my book you see the photograph of the pass. It's called the Dariel Gorge. Who are they? This tribe of people who have this power and who will be linked with the Holy Land. From that part of the world, you will see them moving to the Holy Land to take control of the Holy Land and then to bring the Israelite people back to the Holy Land. From north of the Caucasus Mountains. Do we know who they were? The question, remember, was who are these who have brought the Jews back to the Holy Land to reclaim it as their own? That's the question. When we conduct our research, we find something very interesting. And that is that there was a tribe of people who lived in that region, north of the Caucasus Mountains, who converted to Judaism, who converted and became Jews. So these are not Banu Israel. No. These are not from the seed of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam to Nabi Yaqub alayhi salam. These are not Banu Israel. These are Eastern European people who converted and became Jews. So, European Jews. And the name of the tribe was the Khazar, Khazar, or Khazar. Khazar. You can do a Google search now on Khazar and look for books on the subject. I would recommend one right away. It's entitled The 13th Tribe. The 13th tribe, because Banu Israel were 12 tribes. 12. So, since Jesus became Jews, he called them number 13. And it was written by a Hungarian historian, Arthur Persler, I think was his name. It's a very nice book to read. And I would strongly suggest that you do your homework and read that book at the beginning of your study of the Khazar. You can then go to Jewish sites and you will find Jewish scholars, Israeli scholars today confirming that the majority of Jews in the world today are descended from those people. Khazar. And today they are called Ashkenazi. So, European Jews. And only a small minority would be Banu Israel from Yemen and from Iran and Morocco and so on. These Khazar Jews from their ranks, some converted from Judaism and became Christians. So you now have Khazar Jews who are penetrating Judaism, and the Banu Israel are not too happy with them. And then you have Khazar Jews who become Christians and penetrating Christianity. And the Christians are not too happy with them. So they put their foot into both camps. The Jewish camp and the Christian camp. And they face opposition from the Jewish scholars, from the Christian scholars. Opposition. Eventually, these people create the Zionist movement. Europeans. And so you get Zionist Jews, Khazar, and Zionist Christians, Khazar. And they succeed in swaying considerable Jewish opinion in Europe and Christian opinion in Europe. And they're able to reconcile the two. Oh, I thought that was impossible. Because the Jews boasted If it's not in the Quran, they're going to plaster me tomorrow morning in the newspapers. But it's in the Quran. Allah speaks in the Quran, where the Jews were boasting of how they killed Nabi Isa alayhi salam. It's there in the Quran. And because it's in the Quran, it's not possible for us to say, well, there is an explanation why the Christians were so hostile to the Jews all through history. But now we have a reconciliation between the two. And the emergence of a Jewish-Christian alliance. Zionist alliance. How is it possible? Answer: because you had some in this camp and you had some in that camp. And they were both Khazar. Now this is a very important event in history that has happened. That European Judaism and European Christianity have reconciled and they formed an alliance. And it is that alliance which today controls the world. That alliance also wants Russia to bend down. And that alliance wants China to also bend down. And if Russia and China don't bow down, they're going to fight with them. Because they want to rule the world. That is the alliance which brought the Jews back to the Holy Land, Banu Israel, back to the Holy Land. That is the alliance. So GOG and MAGOG are located here, in the Judeo-Christian Zionist alliance. The Quran must explain this strange event. If the Quran explains all things, because here is a force which is ruling the world, which is almost indestructible in its power. Does the Quran speak about it? All that I'm doing here tonight is putting the Quran before you. I can't be wrong in doing that, can I? If I teach the Quran, is that wrong? Huh? If I can't teach the Quran, I might as well go and plant durian. Huh? Or drive a taxi? If I can't teach the Quran. This is what I'm doing, I'm teaching the Quran. You can blame me for that? In Surah Al-Ma'idah, Allah speaks and He says, O you who have faith in Allah, do not take the Jews and do not take the Christians as your friends and allies. Is it there in the Quran? It is? Good. Question. Is Allah speaking about all Jews? And is He speaking about all Christians? If you go to all the tafasir of the Quran, you'll come to the conclusion that Allah is speaking about all Jews. And He's speaking about all Christians if you go to study those tafasir. But if you use the right methodology, you know Allah is not speaking about all Jews. No! If a Jew stands up against oppression, he's my brother. he and I can form an alliance. We can stand together. If he is a Jew and he stands up against the oppressor, there is no prohibition. If a Christian stands up against the oppressor, he's my brother. I can form an alliance with him. Allah is not speaking about all Jews and all Christians. No, 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 no. Well, then which Jews and which Christians is he speaking about? When he says, do not take the Jews and do not take the Christians as your friends and allies. Am I allowed to tell you the answer? Am I? It's there in the Quran, in the words which follow. بَعَدُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. But you've heard this on YouTube so many times, you're tired of hearing it from me. So many times you've heard it on YouTube, it's nothing new for you. Allah is speaking about such Jews and such Christians who themselves become friends and allies of each other. And he's saying, these are the Jews and these are the Christians with whom you are prohibited from maintaining friendly ties and being allies. Okay? Do we have a Jewish-Christian alliance in the world today? Yes, we do. It is the European Zionist Jewish-Christian alliance. They are the ones who rule the world today. And they are the ones who are putting pressure on Russia and on China. The Bauer. They are the ones that Allah is speaking about. Don't be their friends and allies. This is GOG and MAGOG. This is GOG and MAGOG. In addition, Allah goes on to say, وَمَنْ يَتَوَلَّهُ مِنْكُمْ فَإِنَّهُ مِنْهُمْ. Whosoever from amongst you turn to them with friendship and alliance, you now belong to them. You no longer belong to us. وَمَنْ يَتَوَلَّهُ مِنْكُمْ فَإِنَّهُ مِنْهُمْ. I'm translating correctly, you know. Nothing wrong with my translation of the Quran. Whosoever from amongst you turn to them to be their friends and allies, you now belong to them. You no longer belong to us. Inna Allah la yahdi al-qawm al-zalimin. Surely Allah does not provide guidance for a people who are wicked. That's what they are. That's what they are. And so now we are able to identify GOG and MAGOG. In my first edition of my book on GOG and MAGOG, I came to the conclusion that there was going to be a mighty clash between GOG and MAGOG, and that mighty clash is the malhama of which the Prophet spoke, in which thousands of nuclear weapons are going to be used, and that's going to create the mushroom clouds. That is the dukhan that he spoke about. Dukhan. You're not going to have sunlight in the world for I don't know how many days, maybe weeks, I don't know. No sunlight. Whole world will be covered with smoke. That's coming up. And when that war takes place, there will be a substantial reduction in the population of the world. Maybe only 10% will remain alive. So I came to the conclusion that the Anglo-American Zionist alliance was GOG, and Russia was MAGOG. because I could foresee a clash between the two. And I could see that Russia also had that indestructible power that the United States, Britain and so on had. But in the second edition to my book, I said no. That conclusion was premature. And this is why I always say, when I teach and I give my opinion, do not accept my opinion. No. Do not accept my opinion until you are convinced that it is correct. Because if I make a mistake, how will you correct me? Huh? If you simply swallowing everything I say. Now that's a good student. A good student who critically assesses what I teach and will never accept anything I say until he is convinced that it is correct. That was the way I was with my teacher. And that's the way I want you to be with me. I realized that I made a mistake. I came to a premature conclusion because I did not have all my facts. Only after writing the book did I learn that they attacked Russia, GOG and MAGOG. Russia is not Western Christian, Eastern Christian, Byzantine. And that Christianity is referred to in the Quran as why are you afraid to say Rome? Not Roman, Rome. Ghulibatil Rum, Suratul Rum. There's a surah of the Quran called Suratul Rum. So when the Quran speaks of Rome, the Quran is speaking about Eastern Christianity, not Western Christianity. The Khazar became Jews and then Christians, and they were able to penetrate Western Christianity and bring about the Jewish-Christian alliance in Western Christianity. Oh, what about Eastern Christianity? When Rome emerged in history, it was in Italy, in the city of Rome. But at that time, Rome worshipped idols. That is before Nabi Isa alayhi salam. And then when Constantine became Christian, the Emperor Constantine wanted to get out of this paganism, and he created a new city and called it Constantinople. Constantinople. Mustafa Kemal eventually banned the use of the word Constantinople, and now you must only use the word Istanbul. So I say to Mustafa Kemal, get lost. Get lost, Mustafa Kemal. My prophet used the word Constantinople. And says, my prophet used the word Constantinople. That's the name of the city for me. You can call it whatever you want. But since Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam called it Constantinople, that's the word I'm going to use. Mustafa Kemal put that in his pipe and spoke it. So Rome left Italy, and Rome now came to Constantinople. And then in 1456 or 57, when Sultan Ahmad Fatih, conquered the city, then Rome moved from Constantinople, went to Moscow. So the capital of Rome today is Moscow. Since that time to today is Moscow. Okay? And Rome remained fervently Christian. More authentically Christian than Western Christianity. Yeah. Until something happened in the First World War. The Russians always wanted to get back Constantinople. The most magnificent church of the Christian world was in Constantinople. It was built more than in the year 3 or 4 AD. And it's more than 1,000 years old, 2,000 years old, 300 years old. It was called Hagia Sophia. Okay? And when Sultan Muhammad Fatih conquered the city, he converted the cathedral, the Christian cathedral, to a masjid, which was a very shameful thing to do. A monstrously shameful thing to do. To take a Christian church, conquer, and then convert it to a masjid. Shameful and embarrassment to Islam. And on the day when we conquer Constantinople, inshallah, we return that church to the Christians. So Russia wanted to get back Constantinople. But the Ottoman Empire stood in the way. And the Ottoman Empire, for centuries, had used all their power against the Eastern Christians. If Greece today hates Muslims, the Greek people hate Islam, hate Muslims. Do you know why? Because the Ottomans used to take Greek children, little boys 10 years of age, because they were able to conquer Greece, and they will convert these children to Islam. And then they'll train them and bring them up to be soldiers. And these then became an elite force in the Ottoman army, the Janissaries. Yeah. Christian boys. This is the Ottoman Empire. And then the Ottomans would enslave the women, Greek women, and other women of Eastern Europe. And these women would now be slaves, and put them in their harem. So the Ottoman Sultan will have 100 wives, 100 slaves, 200 slaves, 700 slaves. The Ottoman Sultans could not marry. No. They're not allowed to marry. I thought marriage was half of Iman. So we've got a lot of you tonight here who have only half Iman. And nikah nisful Iman. But the Ottoman sultans could not marry. Why? Because they did not want to have children from wives who would have rights. The wives would have rights. So if they slept only with slaves, the slaves will have no rights. And when a sultan died, one of his sons would be chosen to become the new sultan. And they had a practice for some time that he would kill all his brothers. So they will never have any problem of conflict for succession. No. And so the Ottoman Empire was able to maintain a solid grip on power, uninterrupted power, for so long. They used that power against the Eastern Christians in such a deplorable way that the Eastern Christians today hate Islam. Greece hates Islam. You're not allowed to build a masjid in Greece because of hatred for Islam. That's why they're angry. That's why they hate Islam. So Russia wanted to get back Constantinople. But the Ottoman Empire controlled the Holy Land. So when they were ready to get the Holy Land from the Ottomans and restore a state of Israel and bring the Jews back to the Holy Land, they needed a war. They needed a big war, and they needed to get the Ottoman Empire against them. Okay? But all through the centuries, Britain and France had been allies of the Ottoman Empire. Britain and France. And Russia was always the enemy. The biggest enemy of all was Russia. All the wars that they fought against Russia. Great hatred for Russia. That's the Ottomans. So how can we get the Ottoman Empire involved in a big war? But Ottomans must not be on our side. Simple. In 1907, Britain and France made an alliance with Russia. That must have been like a thunderbolt for the Ottomans. Britain and France make an alliance with Russia. But how can you get Russia to become our ally? Answer, you offer them Constantinople. The Russians will be delighted. So Britain and France made a secret treaty with Russia, offering to them Constantinople if war breaks out. Once the alliance with Russia was made, it meant that when war breaks out, and everybody knows war is coming, the Ottomans cannot join the war on the side of Britain and France because Russia would then become their ally. So it's a game of chess. Chess. You put all the pieces together so you checkmate them. So there's only one road open. Only one road open for the Ottoman Empire, and that is to make an alliance with Germany. That's what they wanted. You see? So when the war broke out in 1914, I'm doing your homework for you now. If you had to do the research to get this that I'm giving you, it would take you a long time. When war broke out in 1914, okay, the Ottoman Empire is on the losing side. And the Russian troops are advancing. And by 1917 it was all over. By 1917, the Russian troops are now closing in on Constantinople. And Russia is rubbing her hands in glee. We're going to get back Constantinople now. But the Zionists did not want Russia to get Constantinople. So what did they do? Just before Russian troops could take Constantinople, the Zionists struck and had a revolution in Russia and killed the whole royal family and brought about a new regime in Russia. It was called the Bolshevik Revolution. It was essentially an atheist revolution to destroy the Christian foundations of Russia. So from 1917, Russia is under the control of GOG and MAGOG. From 1917. When they overthrew the regime in Russia called the Tsar, And they took control of government. Most of them were Jews, eh? They then withdrew Russia from the war. So the Russian troops could not advance to Constantinople. And then they published the secret treaty, made it public. That Britain and France had made a secret treaty with Russia that they would give Constantinople to Russia. See? Then they took Russia and they transformed it into the Soviet Union, which was an atheist state. And the idea was to destroy the Christian foundations of Russia. So it will cease to be ruled. And then Russia became a nuclear power. This is GOG and MAGOG. It is GOG and MAGOG which made Russia a nuclear power. And then Russia became a satellite. Yeah, satellites. And missile technology and so on. This is GOG and MAGOG. So that's why I came to the conclusion that Russia was MAGOG. But then, in the 1980s, alhamdulillah, transformation began to take place. And the Berlin Wall collapsed. And then the Soviet Union collapsed. And guess what? Russia is now returning to Christianity. Russia is becoming Rome once again. See? And so it was wrong for me to say that Russia was Magog and the Anglo-American Israeli alliance was God. That was wrong. I corrected that mistake in my second edition. The answer is that GOG and MAGOG were present in both camps and they still have some foothold in Russia. And GOG and MAGOG are leading both camps to clash. They want these two superpowers to clash with each other. And when that clash takes place, that's going to be the Dukhan, the Malham. And the majority of human beings on the earth will not survive. There are a hadith on the Malhama that you should study, so you could get an idea of how terrible that war is going to be. When that war takes place, only then would it be possible for Israel to rule the world. Because GOG and MAGOG are not going to be destroyed in that war. No. The Anglo-American alliance and the Russian alliance are both going to destroy each other. But GOG and MAGOG will not be destroyed. They will survive. And they will now empower Israel, so that Israel can become the ruling state in the world, and there will be much less human beings on the face of the earth. So it becomes easier for Israel to become the ruling state of the world. It is only after Israel becomes the ruling state and the Dajjal is born of Jewish parents. He grows up as a Jew, a young man, powerfully built, curly hair. And then he rules over Israel and he stands up in Jerusalem and he says, I am the Messiah. Only then would Imam al-Mahdi emerge. How long is that from now? I can guess. I can be wrong. But in the process of guessing, there's also something beneficial. When I say maybe 20, 25 years from now, what I mean to say to you is not 200 years from now. Okay? Imam al-Mahdi will then emerge, and then Nabi Isa alayhi salam will return, and then he will kill Dajjal. And then GOG and MAGOG will emerge in their last surge. This is what the hadith speaks of in Sahih Muslim. That the first of them will pass by the Sea of Galilee and start to drink the water, meaning consume the water, making the deserts green, consuming the water. And by the time the last of them pass, they'll say there used to be water here. So when you see the water level in the Sea of Galilee going down and down and down and down and down, you know that the time is drawing close. When the water is dry, that's the time for Israel to reach its destiny. Nabi Isa alayhi salam will kill Dajjal. Then the last wave of GOG and MAGOG will come. They'll empower Israel, and they'll pursue Nabi Isa alayhi salam to Jerusalem, and he'll be in a mountain in Jerusalem, in Baitul Maqdis. And then Allah will send an attack, biological attack on the necks, and they will all fall down, and they will die. And by next morning their bodies are all smelling. And then Allah will send birds with their necks like coils. So maybe global warming will cause eggs which were in ice to melt, and those eggs can now hatch. So prehistoric birds can become alive again, maybe. And all these bodies will be taken and thrown away, and the earth will be washed clean. It is after that that Israel will face a final toll of the bell, when the Muslim army will liberate the Holy Land. Now what I've done to you tonight is put in a nutshell the basic part of the subject of GOG and MAGOG. I've left out a lot of material. I've left out, for example, because it will take me another 10-15 minutes, that there are trademarks of GOG and MAGOG. The biggest trademark of all is that they commit fasad. They are PhDs in fasad. They corrupt and destroy everything that they touch. So they corrupt the political system, they corrupt the economy, they corrupt the monetary system, they corrupt the educational system, they corrupt everything. They corrupt marriage relations, they corrupt the sexual relations. But the most destructive corruption of all is internal. Internal corruption. Internal corruption. So that the heart can no longer see what otherwise cannot be seen. So there you are. Any questions?
Found some pictures of the Darien Gorge.
Yes. Go ahead, show them. There's the gorge. There's the gorge there, the pass between the mountains. That's where Zulfar named it the barrier. Okay? Yeah, these are old photographs. That's the Black Sea. And there you are, the Black Sea on the left side, the Caspian on the right side. And the Caucasus Mountains in between. Good. No questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yellowstone National Park in the west, that is one place where there is a murky water, and the sun, it appears as if it can set. It's like very big, so that it sets. So the sequence of the Quran is first, Zulkarnain goes to the west, where the sun is setting, and then he goes to where the sun is rising. So which would mean that that's how I feel, that he traveled to the west first, to America, to where there is this huge lake of muddy springs or murky water. And then after that, the sequence is to where the sun is rising, which could mean that it is he traveled through Alaska to the continent and to the east, where the sun is setting, where the sun is rising, which is China. And here in the north, in the east of Russia, there are people who do not have houses. So this also mentioned in the Quran that who have no shelter. So I just thought that this was my critical aspect of.
I have offered one explanation, and I will not comment on any other. If there are other explanations, then there are. You must listen to them, and then make your own judgment. I will not comment. Okay? I like people to do their own thinking, and I'm not going to push anything down your throat. Yeah. So listen to him, and that's not the only one. There are other viewpoints as well. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? If none, okay.
Just a quick question. What do you think about how Islam is rising nowadays and the relation with the end of the world? When now, as we see,
Tonight is devoted to one subject. I want you to stay with that subject because it's a very important subject. If I allow you to ask a question out of the subject, your minds are going astray. And all the work I've done for the last 2 hours might just drift away. I want you to stick to the subject of GOG and MAGOG. GOG and MAGOG, that's the subject for tonight. You hardly will ever find anyone in the whole world of Islam today. You will hardly find anyone teaching the subject. Go ahead and search. See if you can find a teacher. So if you've got a chance tonight, you should utilize the opportunity. Go ahead.
Let me just rephrase it again. What is that we as Muslim can do, since you assume that it's the Russian and the Zionist right? So basically what is that we as Muslim should do to go against them? What is that we can do to deal with them instead of us being influenced by them and terrorized by them, something like that?
In the Quran, Allah speaks, I think it is Surah Al-Baqarah. Any Hafiz of the Quran? Any Hafiz? Or Hafizah? In the Quran, Allah speaks about the kuffar. And He says they are friends and allies of each other. And then He goes on to say, إِلَّمْ تَفَعَلُوا, if you do not do the same, make alliances, تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ كَبِيرٌ. There will be great fitna and fasad in the earth. So we don't just sit down doing nothing. No. We recognize the world around us. We see who are the forces of GOG and MAGOG. And then we try to make alliances with forces which are opposed to oppression. The religion of Islam, as I know it, and perhaps you will agree with me, the religion of Islam came into the world to oppose oppression and to liberate the oppressed. Is there anyone who wants to differ with that? Huh? And so sensible people will be searching for allies amongst Jews who are also opposed to oppression. You will make alliances with Jews. Christians who are opposed to oppression, you make alliances with Christians. If Russia is standing up to the Zionists and Russia is returning to Christianity, you forge an alliance with Russia. If China refuses to bow down to the Zionists, you forge an alliance with China. That's one of the things you could be doing. In the world of Islam, Pakistan took the lead. About maybe 40, 50 years ago. As long ago as that, Pakistan forged an alliance with China. It was a very sensible thing to do. Very sensible. Because when the Zionists pulled that Bin Laden trick out of their bag in Abbottabad, they said they found him, they killed him, they threw his body in the sea, and then a big fish came and swallowed it. You know that story? They were ready to attack Pakistan. The Pakistani Prime Minister flew to China. And the Pakistani President flew to Russia because they knew this was it. This was the moment they were waiting to attack. And then China issued a statement, which China had never done before. China has a defense treaty with only one country, North Korea. But China made a declaration, if you attack Pakistan, you attack China. And they were not ready yet for a war with China. Okay? Iran did the same thing with Russia. And that's why they've not been able to attack Iran as yet. Syria did the same thing with Russia. And that's why they could not do another Libya in Syria. Otherwise, Turkey is ready to attack Syria on behalf of the NATO. But if you attack Syria, you're going to get Russia on your tail. And Russia is a nuclear power. So, the answer to your question is, Allah says in the Quran, إِلَّمْ تَفْعَلُوا, if you do not do the same, forge alliances, تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ كَبِيرٌ. Okay? Alright. The second thing you do is when you see people around you all following the GOG and MAGOG way of life, turning away from Allah and His Messenger, worshipping money, what do? When you see food being corrupted and all that you're eating is garbage, when you see your children growing up strangely, your daughters grow up on their eyes, blue jeans, no hijab, and your sons grow up and the first thing they do is to shave off their beards. And they also want to join the blue jeans Jamaat. Nobody wants to study the deen. Everybody wants to go and study in Oxford and Cambridge and Harvard and Yale and Sorbonne, what have you. Come back and get a big job. But nobody wants to do what I'm doing here tonight. What do? Do you live among such people? If you do, then your whole family will be gone. No. What you have to do is to separate from them and go and build a pure society as it used to be in your grandfather's time. The way of life you used to have. Produce your own food and stop eating imported food. Eat your own food. And get your women to grow up as women, not as men. And get your men to grow up as men, not as women. Huh? I call that the Muslim village, or the Muslim kampung. And this kampung produces its own food. I don't know whether in Brunei you reached that stage already, where you need to go and build Muslim villages. I was very, very, very happy to come here and learn that His Majesty the Sultan of this country has declared his intention to enforce Islamic law. You know how many Muslims around the world will be so happy to hear those words. You were so lucky. Very few Muslims around the world will have a real leader who speaks like that. Then we're going to enforce Islamic law. I gave a lecture about 2 weeks ago, which you should listen to, enforcing the Sharia in the modern age. Enforcing the Sharia in the modern age. There are parts of the subject you must be aware of. So if you feel that you are in Brunei in need of such, then you go ahead and you build your Muslim villages. There are lots of people in Brunei living in kampung, aren't there? Are they bad? Huh? You're going to condemn them for living in kampung? What rubbish. So if they can live in kampung, why not you? Is it wrong for me to want to leave the city and go and live in a village? Is that wrong? You can put me in jail for that? What rubbish. Huh? Is it backward? So you're going to condemn all the people in villages? Are you going to condemn all the people living in villages that they're backward? They should all leave the villages and come to the city? That is PhD in rubbish. Kampung people are very nice. If you want to see how nice kampung is, come to Kuala Lumpur when it's Hari Raya. The whole of Kuala Lumpur leaves. Endless traffic jam. Where are you going? Kampung. Everybody going kampung. That's where you celebrate Hari Raya. Any more questions? Yes? No? Okay. Alright. No more questions? Time for Teh Tarik?
Thank you, Sheikh Imran Hosein, for this wonderful lecture once more. And this is the last lecture of 2012. And inshallah, we'll have you back next year for an Islamic retreat. We're going to pray Salat Isha before we eat.
Okay, I made my Isha already. You over.
And Sheikh, I guess we can end with Asr. إن الإنسان الذين آمنوا بالصالحات والصبر الحكيم والصبر.
Assalamu alaikum. Which way is Qibla? This way. Okay. Well, I'll sit to the back.